like to begin today's presentation by introducing our speaker. Stephen Best is an attorney as well as a certified law office software consultant. With an education background in law, accounting, and economics, Stephen consults with law firms throughout the United States on law office software as well as sophisticated practice management issues. Stephen is a graduate of Rutgers University and Emory University School of Law. He is a member of the Florida and Georgia bars and is also a certified consultant and trainer, maintaining certifications in many of the leading practice management, billing, and accounting, and document management software. In his free time, Stephen enjoys composing music, playing tennis, cooking, and spending time with his wife and children. And at this time, I will turn the webinar over to our speaker.
Thank you, Julia, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Bridging the Gap Between Hours Worked and Hours Billed. And let me start off by saying that, even if you don't work in an environment where you bill by the hour, I think that this webinar or the topics that we're going to discuss today are valuable for every lawyer in every facet of private practice and even in some public arenas and even in corporate legal departments, because what we're going to learn today and what I'm going to discuss with you is that hours are our inventory, and whether you bill by the hour or not, it's worth tracking. So let's start by thinking about some of the challenges that we face in a 2012 law firm. Where and how do we keep track of accurate workday tasks and communications? What's the best way to do that? What are some of the tips and tricks in which we do that, given that there are a myriad of distractions and interruptions? You're concentrating on drafting something and someone's knocking at your door, your phone is ringing, emails are popping up at you, your cell phone rings, you're getting a text message. I mean, the interruptions in a current work environment are enormous compared to the environments of, say, when our parents were running businesses. And I think one of the key aspects of this is that the workday has truly been redefined. I often think back to, the 1950s sitcoms, and I think about, Ozzie and Harriet, and Ozzie would come home from his day and he would put his briefcase on the chair and he was done. And he didn't have to worry about work again until 9 o'clock the next morning when he walked back into the office. And that is so not the way it is today. I mean, we are under constant pressure to have 24-hour access to our information, to be available to people almost 24 hours a day, give or take sleep time. We really feel this pressure to constantly, pick up that iPhone, pick up that Android phone, and read our emails, and take it and listen, respond to text messages, and look things up on the internet, and be ready and available to our clients and to our staff without a lot of downtime. So when we talk about time, and I mentioned this in my opening, time's our inventory. Even if you don't bill by the billable hour, you bill on a flat fee basis, you bill on a contingency basis. And for those of you that do personal injury work or workers' compensation work or Social Security disability work where you're really taking a percentage of fees, you're producing bills too, even though your bills just look different. They just have a different layout and a different feel to them. And then we also want to really track our non-billable hour. What are we doing to bring in business? What are we doing to develop our practice? What are we doing to build rapport with those that we work with and those that we represent? And a lot of that is done through the non-billable hour, and I think that is very much an item that's worth tracking and being able to analyze how we're spending that non-billable hour and how does it benefit us. So overall, we have to analyze time spent, the tasks that we do, communications, what's billable, what's non-billable, and then billing realization is really the thought of, if I take my entire workday, how much have I realized in billable time or events that will lead to revenue. And small changes, if you do that realization, you do the analysis, small changes can minimize the gap that we feel between hours worked and hours billed. Impacting how we effectively utilize our staff. We want to leverage technology appropriately. We want to invest in it properly. We want to budget for technology. This is 2012, and this is not really the forum for talking about it, but I'm going to tell you what my mantra, whenever I speak to folks about technology, is this is the age of Google, and you want information at your fingertips, and your clients expect you to have information at your fingertips. So you really want to leverage technology. And you can leverage technology to help you track your workday tasks and communications. And you want to spend effective time in the office, and you want to spend your effective time out of the office as well. Coupled with the fact that we also have to operate within the model rules of professional responsibility, and they require that we have regular communications with our clients and that we charge them reasonable fees. So we'll talk about that as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the new tools, new automation tools that are out that can help us capture time as our inventory and find the holes in our workday. So make sure that, not only are we capturing as much billable time as we possibly can, but are we effectively creating a history of what's happened matter by matter. So even if you don't bill by the hour, it's worth it to create that historical information. Should you be in a position at some point to do an application for fees after a successful litigation case in court, you don't want to have to go back to the office and start pulling out paper out of the file to try to recreate the events of what led up to your success in court and have a successful motion for fees. In the end, to me, the goal is to more effectively manage your time so you can maximize your not only your time, quote unquote, in the office, and I use that term loosely, but you want to have quality time outside the office too. You want to turn the technology off a little bit. You want to put that BlackBerry and iPhone down a little bit and enjoy your family, enjoy what makes you happy. Julia mentioned that I like to play tennis. I like to compose music. I don't necessarily use office-oriented technology to do that. That's my downtime, and I value it very much. And ultimately, you want to have an impact on the profitability of your firm. So the challenges of a 2012 lawyer, I've got a couple here that I think I want to go through with you. And the first one is what I call the less than 9 and greater than 5 challenge, and that is that we work more, typically we work more than 9 hours a day. Not necessarily in the office, we're in the car, we're in the courthouse, we're in the airport, we're on airplanes, we're home, we're in someone else's office. We are constantly connected, and we're constantly communicating through our smartphones. So we work much more than 9 hours. It's probably more like a 12-hour day for many of us. But a lot of times we work all that time, but we're only able to recall less than 5 hours of billable work because we're not keeping track of our time contemporaneously, which of course is going to be one of the tips you're going to hear momentarily, but also that we don't have the tools to ensure that we're tracking our time for billing purposes and for creating matter history. So we often ask ourselves, where did the day go? The volume of work that we have these days is overwhelming. And before we know it, the day is winding down, the sun is setting, and we just can't recall everything we've done. I mean, it happens to me too. I sit down sometimes and I get involved in working for my clients, and all of a sudden I look at the clock, it's after 5 o'clock, and I think to myself, where in the world did the day go? And mobility is a never-ending and ever-evolving challenge and technology. Mobility prevails. I mean, we work here, we work there, we work everywhere, and we accurately need to capture the services that we provide, again, to create matter history and to accurately bill our clients. So the bottom line is we maintain a huge workload, but because we are out about, we're challenged with mobility, we have an enormous workload, and we're often working more than 9 and unable to recall more than 5 hours, we may not be generating enough or appropriate revenue and profit. So I think that it's really important that we take stock of the technology that's available to us and take stock of how we spend our days and really make it a priority to track our time. So let's talk for a second about the ABA model rules of professional responsibility, because there's 2 key rules that I want to bring to everybody's attention before we go into what I'm going to call my tips and tricks on capturing your time. Number 1 is ABA Model Rule 1.5, which dictates that we look at 8 factors when we're billing our clients. Now, I looked at the ABA rules, and then I went and I sampled a couple of states. I sampled Massachusetts, New Jersey, Georgia, and California. And the rules are pretty similar. There's New Jersey's got one slight modification, but Massachusetts and Georgia and California adopt this language. And I'm not going to read them all to you, but it's our responsibility to comply with appropriate and accurate billing for our clients. We have to make sure that our fees are reasonable. We have to make sure that we capture the history of the case. We have to make sure that we live within time limitations that the client may impose. And we have to disclose on our engagement letters how the fee is going to be calculated, what rates we're going to charge, and if the fee is fixed or contingent, how that will be calculated and what that includes. So take a look at ABA Model Rule 1.5, and more importantly, take a look at how it's been interpreted in your state or province to ensure that you feel that your firm is complying with this rule. And secondly, Model Rule 1.4, so we'll go back just a tenth of a chapter, requires a lawyer to keep the client reasonably informed. It also, 1.4b says that the lawyer must explain to the extent reasonably necessary to permit the client to make informed decisions. And therein lies the challenge of really capturing that matter history, of really understanding, or not understanding, but rather informing our clients of what's happening on their case and do it in a reasonable way with a reasonable fee that's been disclosed to the client up front. Now, the model rules themselves are not specific about how we do it. They're not specific about the duty to provide timely or accurate billing statements per se. They just say we have to do it. California is the exception to that rule. They go so far as to impose a duty to keep clients informed, and they've got in their Business and Professional Code, Section 6148C, it says that the lawyer must provide a billing statement within 10 days if requested by the client. But it doesn't really, none of the states that I sampled, and nor do the model rules, really talk about what a bill should look like, how a bill should inform the client. I know that some of the Canadian provinces may have some more direction for the lawyers that practice in those provinces. But as far as I can tell, and I just sampled 4 of the 50 states, none of them really talked about what a bill should look like and how we should capture our time and how we should present that information to our clients to keep them reasonably informed. So, okay, so to me, when we bring all these thoughts together, we bring 1.4 and 1.5 together, we say, okay, it is the duty, we have a duty to keep accurate activity records. We have an obligation to accurately report on what we've worked on. We have an obligation, to reflect the same by memorializing our day, even if in 6-minute increments or not. We have an obligation to report this to our clients in a reasonable manner. We have an obligation to communicate with the clients and to answer them within a reasonable time upon their demand. We have an obligation to oversee our support staff and what they've done for our clients. From a business perspective, we need to be able to not only report this to our clients, but to be able to use this data to analyze our own productivity. If someone in your office is spinning their wheels, I often joke around, like if you have an associate who's fresh out of law school and they're spinning their wheels by spending 14 hours researching how to serve process on a dog, you might want to just get a sense of looking at those WIP reports and saying, hey, Steve, get in here. You can't serve process on a domestic animal. You have to serve process on a human being in our jurisdiction. So you really want to take the information that you and your staff are keeping track of on behalf of your clients and analyze your own productivity as well. And from a business perspective, we want to take stock of how we and our staff are spending our days. Are we being productive members of the firm? Are we able to do something in a short amount of time and have larger revenues from it? One of the ways that my business partner and colleague Baron Henley will often mention is to embrace document assembly software, which you can get from within some of the case management systems out there, or through a program that you may have heard of called Hot Docs or Express Docs. That's a way that you can streamline document output and know that it's accurate and it's being done quickly and accurately and getting information to your clients. And then we'll talk a little bit about what I call value billing in just a moment. So, but ultimately, we have a duty as lawyers to keep accurate records of what we're doing, even if you don't bill by the hour. So how do we do this? What are the tips and tricks to bridge the gap between hours worked and hours billed? So I've got 10 tips for you, and here's tip number 1. So tip number 1, and this is sort of a no-brainer to me, employ time billing and accounting software made for our profession. Now, I don't want to start talking about other products out there. I know that a lot of you use a very popular accounting product that starts with a Q. And it's a great product, but understand it is profession agnostic. It is not necessarily made for our profession, like some of the software that is made for our profession that tracks trust money, that has built-in productivity reports, that lets us create reasonably and easy to understand bills that we can either email or print and mail to our clients. There are a lot of packages out there that are made for us. And I suggest that we look at the ones that have time billing and accounting all in one. There are some products out there that I want to mention that have time and billing as a part of the practice management and links to that trusted accounting package that starts with a Q. And that's fine as long as you have some way of billing your clients within a box that's made for us in our profession. And there's lots of programs out there. If you do have the kind of software that has time billing and accounting all wrapped into one, you're not repeating yourself. You know, a lot of folks that have that popular accounting package I was talking about, you bill in one package, you do your expense entries and receipts in the other package, and there's room for error. The integrated products, you don't have that problem. Just to mention, firms of 1 to 50 people, you may want to consider packages like PC Law Tabs 3. Firms of more than 50 people, Juris, Orion, Rippey, and Kingston, and there's lots and lots and lots of software out there. I'm not endorsing any of these specifically, but these are some of what I consider the best of breed. And then I also want to mention to you, since it is 2012, there are ever-improving and ever-evolving technologies in the cloud that will also let us have practice management and time and billing in trusted, secure, cloud-based environments. LexisNexis Firm Manager is one of them, Rocket Matter, Clio, Advalogix. These are the products that are out there that are ever-evolving and ever-improving. And if you're interested in the cloud, you may want to inquire of your CIC or your trusted IT professional to help you do some investigation as to whether or not the cloud is right for you. But bottom line, tip number one, get a good billing package that's made for the legal profession. Tip number two, as I've mentioned, I think it's really important that we all capture our billable days, we all capture our work days, whether billable or not. Again, I know, and I keep repeating the same things, but I think I want to hone these points in. History of your matters, what you've done, you know, capturing everything that you've done so that you can communicate it to your client. You could communicate it to a court in case you have an opportunity to get some fees from your opposing party. And you've got a complete history. Should a client ever question what you've done, you can say, look, this is what I've done. These are the steps we took. These are the days we did it. It will give you an unbelievable amount of peace of mind. It'll give you the opportunity to have good staff productivity review. And again, I keep harping on this, time is our inventory. You know, if you weren't an attorney, but instead you owned a hardware store at a local shopping center near your home, every couple of months you would have to take stock of what you have, because you certainly don't want to order more hammers if you've got enough hammers and you've got 6 months supply of hammers and hammers aren't selling. That's why these firms take inventory. By the same token, we want to know, are our staff spending the requisite amount of time they should be spending to accomplish the tasks that we've given them? And you should be able to, and there is software out there that gives you that oversight, and it's called practice management software, and that's exactly what it does. Practice management software helps you analyze what's been done, what's not been done, what needs to happen on your cases. It reminds you to bill your time. You see the little image there. Do you want to create a time entry for this item? That comes from a popular practice management software. You can build triggers to help capture events, to help capture time for events, phone calls, and emails. So even if you shy away from, and you're saying, I can't stand what this guy is saying because I don't want to bill my time, I hate billing my time, I abhor it, a lot of these packages will just do it for you. You just have to say okay, and it'll just create the entry for you, and you can forget about it. And practice management software will help you automate workflow and document output, and track and save all your communications to your matters and bill for them. You want to bill for everything you do and everything your staff does. And when I say bill, I use the term loosely. You just want to capture that you've done it. You want to capture the communication, you want to capture the event, you want to capture the document, you want to capture the conclusion of the task so that you know what's happened. And it all reports itself, perhaps on a bill, perhaps on a statement, whatever you want to call it. So in my consulting practice, and in the days when I practiced law, I made it a point to make sure that I captured at least a 7-hour day, so that I could go back anytime and see, what did I spend my day on? You know, how did I spend Monday, January 11th, and what did I do? And I know that. I can go back into my system right now, and I know exactly what I've done. So that brings us to tip number 3, which is require everyone to capture their time contemporaneously with the work that they've done. And I put a big number 7 on there because to me, 7 is the magic number. You want at least a 7-hour day. That gives you time for coffee breaks and lunch. Even though I've said, and I think everyone on this call would agree, we work more than a 7-hour day. We want to stop letting billable and non-billable time slip away from us. And if you're going to mandate this, in all honesty, the buck stops with you, the attorney. You have to do it too. You've got to agree to do it. Everybody's got to huddle in, and you've got to say, this is the way we're going to operate. And it may be in your practice that it's a culture change, that it's a shift in the way you've always done it. You know, look, you and your partner broke away from a big insurance defense firm to do personal injury work, and work is there, the practice is good, your staff is happy, life is good, the practice is working, but can you really track productivity? Do you really know what you did 10 days ago? And are you really keeping track of everything that's going on in your matters? And that's why I think that, you know, if you hate tracking your time, you hate billing your time, get practice management software, because it'll trigger you to bill your time for you, and it'll capture that information and put it away so you can look at it when you're ready. So again, I harp on this: contingency fee firms, flat fee firms. This means you. It means every one of us. Now, if you bill by the hour, obviously, you know, you don't have a choice, and you're creating the records, and hopefully you're tracking everything you're doing, not just the billable work, but also the non-billable work. So you really get a sense of how you can realize the most productivity from yourself and from your staff. Okay, so that brings us to the mobility stuff. You know, we're not always in the office. If you're like me, you're on airplanes, you know, 3 weeks out of the month, and you're in the car and you're traveling here, there, and everywhere, and you know, you're a busy litigator. You're at the courthouse in the first county, and then you have to be in the courthouse later on in the day in the second county, and you are going to take calls in between, and you're going to answer emails in between. Why not have mobility tools? So there's a lot of tools out there. Every day, I would bet there's a new application that's being developed, and every couple of weeks you're just going to see a new one being released that gives you the ability to capture time. In this example on the screen, you see what's called PC Law Mobility, and that's on an iPhone. So on my iPhone, if I use PC Law, I can actually make a time entry and have that instantaneously add to my database so that I can capture all of my time while I'm away from the office. So check in, if you have an iPhone or if you have a Droid, check in the App Store in the Marketplace. Check with your IT people, you know, and there's different products out there. Tabs 3 has the newly to be released Tabs 3 Connect product. LexisNexis has PC Law and Time Matters Mobility. Gavel & Gown has Amicus Mobile. And then there are some products out there that I mentioned at the bottom: Bill for Time, Work Tracker by Proximity Communications, and iTimekeep by Bellafield, which is limited to the iPhone. And so all of these tools are available to us so we can capture our time while we're away, and some of them will even interrupt us and say, hey, you just sent an email. Do you want to bill for that? So there's lots of opportunity out there now to bill away from the office. And again, you know, I think everybody recognizes that we have the challenges now that we're just away almost as much as we are in the office sometimes. And so you need to be able to track that stuff and make sure that you capture your billable time for record-keeping purposes and for billing and reporting purposes. Tip number 5, employ software that helps you find the gaps of time in your day. So some of the packages that are available to us have functions in them called like time entry advisors, or you know, time capture advisors, or time entry recommendation, where they find places where you have a hole in your day. So the screenshot you see here is called for the Time Entry Advisor from PC Law, and this is new, coming into version 12. And essentially what this add-on or this module will do, it's not an add-on, it's actually included, but what the module does is it finds where we've failed to bill for things. In this case, on the example on your screen, I haven't yet billed for a document and 2 phone calls. And it'll track things like phone calls, emails, appointments, to-dos, and documents, and let you know where you perhaps missed the opportunity to capture billable activity. This is a desktop-oriented item. If you bill in the cloud, you can build triggers that will help you do this with cloud-based software. I know that some of the other popular packages out there have functions like this as well. This is latest and greatest. If you're not on the latest and greatest version, you may want to inquire of your time billing and accounting or practice management software vendor about the availability of something like this. I can tell you on a daily basis, in the package that we use here to bill our time, I rely on that thing to help me find the opportunities that I may have missed. So check with your software vendor, check with your certified consultant to perhaps help you make sure that you have those tools at your fingertips. And value billing. So I talked a little bit about it. I touched upon the idea of document assembly software to accurately assemble litigation documents, wills and trust documents, corporate documents, leases, whatever it may be. Document assembly software is one of the ways you can move to a value billing prospect. And you know, if you think about it, when it comes to billing, when we meet with our clients for the first time, when we ask for a retainer and they say, well, how long will this take? Most of us will say, well, it should take anywhere from this many hours to that many hours, but we're not really sure, and we're very vague because we don't really want to box ourselves in unless we know, we're doing something on a flat fee basis and we know exactly how long it will take us to complete the task. But if you're going to ask someone for a retainer and you're going to bill by the hour, what the client hears you saying is, hire me, pay me a retainer. I don't know how long this will take. I'm going to bill you by the hour, but I don't know how many hours, and you must keep paying me or I can't represent you anymore. If I stop representing you, it may cause you irreparable harm. If you stop paying, I stop working. That's what they hear. And so the idea behind value billing is that if you employ the right technology and you automate your practice and you really take stock of your productivity, you can value bill. You can say to the client, look, I'll bill you in phases. At the end of phase 1, I will have accomplished this. At the end of phase 2, I will have accomplished this. And practice management, document assembly, document management software, and appropriate time billing and accounting software all put together can help you do that because you can automate your tasks and workflows. You can automate your document output, and some of the document assembly softwares will even automate email production. Document management software, once you create it, and you store it away, it helps you find that information quickly. Again, age of Google. You want to find stuff quickly. Your clients don't want to call up and say, hey, what's going on in my case, and have you go, hold on while I scream for my secretary or my legal assistant to ask me where the file is so I can thumb through lots of papers and try to come up with something intelligent to say while you're on the phone waiting for me to tell you what's going on with your case. So the idea of having the right technology and considering this value billing prospect, it sort of shifts the risk away from the client to you, and if you've got the right technology in place, that your value add to the client will be greater because they won't fear that every time I call the lawyer, he's going to bill me, or every time I send her an email, she's going to bill me, because they know it's all sort of included in the phase or value billing. Just food for thought and idea to better give your clients a little bit more peace of mind about working with you rather. And tip number 7, billing satisfies Model Rule 1.4. It is the effective way of keeping your client informed at the same time that you can produce revenue for your work, for your practice. So my suggestion to you is keep the billing cycle regular and consistent. Don't bill haphazardly. Every month, every 15 days, every 60 days, whatever you do, just decide how you're going to bill. Tell your clients how you're going to bill. Tell your clients what you expect of them when it comes from billing, and make sure it's all memorialized in your retainer agreement. And keep that cycle regular. Keep it consistent. Make your bills easy to read. and easy to understand. And the packages that I recommended, the time billing and accounting packages that are made for our profession, include templates that are easy to read and easy to understand. You know, the problem that I have with a lot of clients of my clients that don't use law office time billing and accounting software made for our profession is I think that they have a harder time collecting because their bills are harder to understand. Make sure the bills are accurate and that they reflect all work done in that cycle, including costs advanced and a statement of trust of the client's trust funds. Now, you want to make sure that your bills, by making sure your bills are accurate, by using things like the mobility application, by using things like the Time Entry Advisor, by using practice management software that reminds you to capture time for documents, emails, communications, phone calls, calendar events, completed tasks. You're going to capture that time. You're going to report to the client the work that's been done, and you're going to keep the client reasonably informed. You know, the last thing any of us wants to deal with is a letter from the state bar saying that somebody's complained that we haven't communicated effectively. And the way you communicate effectively is by sending them some sort of a statement. And even you, those of you that do contingency work, you can design a bill template that just basically says, here's what I did in the last period. Keeping you informed, love to continue to represent you, but this is what's happened in your case. You know, when I did personal injury work when I had my own practice years ago, we didn't really use time billing and accounting software effectively, even though I had it. But I would still, every month, I would dictate a letter about what's happening on the case, and I would save that letter. But you don't need to do that anymore because you just need a package that'll do it for you. Remember, billing is communication about the status of the client's matter. At the same time, you're tracking productivity. Tip number 8. We're in the age of Google. We're in the age of email. Start emailing your bills. Save some money. 21st century, your clients will be absolutely fine with it. You're going to be capturing more billable time, so you're going to have more and more volume on those invoices because you're going to employ the software that I'm suggesting that you use to bridge that gap. You want to be able to get those statements out quickly, easily, and with very little cost, especially if you don't bill regularly now. So do it by email. Most of your clients will prefer it. Many will expect it. It's environmentally friendly. You're not going to have to waste expensive letterhead or engraved envelopes. And in fact, if you're billing on letterhead and envelopes, please stop. It saves a lot of money. I think you can save on average about $1,200 per year. And that's only if you're producing 100 bills a month. If you're doing more than that, you're saving more money. The cost of emailing your bills is 0. So make sure, you know, if you have a clientele that doesn't really work well with email, if you have an older clientele, you may still need to produce some bills on paper. And in fact, you may just have to in certain circumstances. And of course, if you bill electronically, that's, you know, this issue is really not your issue. But if you don't, if you've got a practice where you're either not billing consistently or you are billing consistently, but you're not billing, or you're producing a lot of paper and you're killing a lot of trees and you're spending a lot of money on postage and you're putting a lot of envelopes into the mailbox, really and truly consider emailing your bills. Most of the packages that I recommended on the first slide have the capability included to send an email statement. And people expect it now. It's nothing extraordinary these days. So I think it's well worth your consideration to get those bills out consistently. You're going to capture all your time. You may increase the volume, and why should you pay for it when you have the ability to email? Consider billing more frequently. You say, well, my goodness, Steve, I'm barely billing consistently at all, and now you're telling me to bill even more frequently than I'm 1 month at a time? Consider splitting your client list in two. A through L's get billed on the 15th, M through Z gets billed on the 30th. I think when you do something like that, it helps improve your cash flow because checks are coming in, payments are being rendered to you every single day of the month, as opposed to the ebb and flow of the bills go out on the 1st, or we cut off billing on the 31st, we hope to get the bills out by the 10th, and we see the checks beginning to flow in by the 20th. If you're billing half your client list on 1st to the 15th and half your client list on 16th to the 30th, yes, you'll be reviewing pre-bills more often. You'll be billing more frequently, but it'll be half the volume, and you'll see more cash flow. And I think it spreads out a lot of the pressures at the time of billing, because I'm suggesting to you now to engage these tools to help you capture more billable time, which means more items on the pre-bill to review. And so if you are reviewing pre-bills a little bit at a time every month, I think it spreads out those pressures as opposed to having to take a giant stack home on the first weekend of the month, and while your family's at the pool, you're reviewing pre-bills. And again, it helps keep the billing cycle consistent. Your clients know, I get my bills from the lawyer on the 15th. The other side of the firm knows they get their bills on the 30th. You can do it by splitting the client list. You could split up the lawyers. You can say, I got two partners, Steve and Susie. We're going to do Steve's bills on the 1st. We're going to do Susie's bills on the 15th. You can do it any way you want. Something just to think about. And finally, my 10th tip is to really get a sense, by doing all of everything that I'm recommending to you, to bridge this gap, to really capture to be able to bill for the hours that you're working. If you're going to go through all of these steps that I'm suggesting, you're going to be able to analyze the practice better. You want to review productivity reports. I'm talking about, review things like a time summary report. How much time is my staff spending on billable tasks? How much time are they spending on non-billable tasks? How much time is being written down? How much billing, how much of the invoices that have gone out the door are being collected? What percentage am I collecting at 100%? Am I collecting 80%? God forbid I'm collecting only 30%. And if you are only collecting 30%, why are you only collecting 30%? So the productivity reports built into the packages made for our profession will do that for you. You want to compare your WIP versus your billings versus your collections and get a sense of how much is not being paid timely and why. There's nothing worse than, well, lots of things worse than this, but from a productivity standpoint, there's nothing worse than doing all this work, sending a bill out, and not getting paid, and not getting paid, and not getting paid. And you want to know, well, why aren't our clients paying us? Or should we have more, should we be trying to get retainers from our clients? Should we be asking our clients, or sampling our clients, with emails after the fact saying, are you satisfied with our services? Doing some client satisfaction surveys, and find out, if you're not being paid timely, why aren't you being paid timely? And that's what this, part of bridging the gap between hours worked and hours billed is ensuring that all of that leads to getting paid. Ensure your staff is following your policies and spending is authorized. So that's a mouthful, because you want to ensure that the staff that's doing the legal work with you is following your policies and procedures, that they are billing accurately and effectively, that they are capturing what they're doing to help compile matter history. And by the same token, you also want to keep track of what the back office folks are doing, the people who are actually paying your payables and generating the bills for you. Are they doing and doing your receipts and getting your deposits in and helping you manage your trust account? And I say that very last part importantly, because every state has laws that says the trust account and the maintenance of the trust account is our responsibility as lawyers. So you have to make some time in your day or in your month to go over the trust account and make sure that it balances and it's being accurate, and you know whose money's in trust. So you want to make sure that everybody follows your policies and that everything that's being spent is authorized. I mean, sadly I've been to firms where staff has embezzled money from the staff owners, and it's a very disheartening feeling. It's a very unhappy feeling, and a lot of times it really hits you hard, because either it's somebody you thought you could trust, or you can sometimes put the blame on yourself for not having paid attention, for having looked the other way, and putting too much trust into somebody. It never hurts to say, these are the reports I want every month. Go over those reports. A good consultant can help you decide what reports you should run in the package that you have to help you analyze your practice. And also, you'll catch mistakes that way as well. So part of the way, if you're going to be capturing more billable time, and you're going to bridge the gap between your work day and the hours that you bill, make some time to analyze the practice as well. And then, bottom line is, and it's not rocket science, just be aware. Know what's going on around you. And when you feel there's an opportunity for change, make those changes when it's appropriate. So all of those 10 tips that I just gave you will really, truly, in my opinion, help you bridge the gap between the hours you work every day. And again, I know that the workday is an ever-expanding process, 12, 13-hour days, and the hours that we bill. So in conclusion, there are a myriad of technology tools out there to help us capture the time. Mobility tools, desktop time advisors, practice management software with triggers, practice management software that reminds us every time we check something off, do we want to make a time entry. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of packages out there that will help us. If you're relying on, writing your time down, at the very least, make sure that you go over that every single day and that you capture 7 hours. If you put the onus on yourself and on your staff that you're going to write the time down to give to somebody else to enter, which again I think that's very 1990s, but we'll go with that for a second. You're going to write the time down and you're going to hand it in to someone else to enter for you. Make sure that you do a 7-hour day at least, so that you can go through your email and go through the phone calls that you've memorialized and go through reviewing your day every single day. Try to do it as contemporaneous as possible. And write down the time, and hopefully you're going to do it electronically. Capture the time that you don't bill by the hour for better financial, capture the time that's non-billable is what I want to say. Capture your non-billable time so you have a better financial analysis of what you're doing with your day. Even if you don't bill on a regular hourly basis, you want to capture billable and non-billable time. So sort of got ahead of myself there. Capture your time even if you don't bill by the hour, and you'll get a better financial analysis of your business, matter history, etc. You want to know what your staff is doing, if they're being productive. Are they spinning their wheels? Are they spending an enormous amount of time in the break room and not capturing a full 7-hour day? You want to be able to address that. Maybe you're overstaffed. I hope not, but maybe perhaps you are. You want to improve the billing process, I think, by billing more, considering that you consider billing more frequently, making sure that the billing cycle is consistent, and consider billing by email. It's certainly acceptable in this day and age. All of the above ensures better communication as mandated by the model rules of professional responsibility. Check your state or province bar rules and make sure that you're compliant with them. It can't hurt to even just take a glance at them after this call. So that's my suggestions for bridging the gap between hours worked and hours billed. On the screen is my communication information. Julia, that's the presentation. I actually gave us back about an extra 5 minutes, so we have a little extra time for questions if there are any. So I'm happy to stay online and answer those questions now. Julia, are you with us?
Yep,
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen, for the informative presentation. This does conclude the presentation portion of our webinar. As a reminder, if you do have any questions for Stephen, please feel free to ask them via the questions pane located on your webinar control panel. And the first question is, are there any tips tailored to the litigation paralegals, especially given that we do not normally have secretaries or assistants?
I didn't hear, what was the very first part of that question? I missed it a little bit. You said something about litigation paralegals. What was the first question?
Are there any
Can you
tips?
repeat it for me?
Yes. Are there any tips tailored to the litigation paralegals?
The tips that I would suggest to you is the tips that I gave to attorneys, and that is, capture that 7-hour day at least. Capture what you're doing. Keep track of it. I don't know what, I don't know. Hopefully you're not doing it on paper anymore, that you've got, you're able to plug that information into the system and bill contemporaneously. After you finish a task, bill for it. After you send an email, bill for it. And I know that's easier said than done. I really, truly appreciate that. But if you just take that extra moment, the pressure's on you to really know what you've done, especially if an attorney comes to you and says, how long did it take you to do this, or is that complete, or what process are we in the research that you're doing? You'll have the answers at your fingertips. So it's really, I think the advice is essentially the same that I gave the attorneys, is capture a minimum of a 7-hour day, track your time, and especially if you're in a litigation practice that doesn't bill by the hour, do it anyway.
Are there any personal programs an individual can use if the firm does not want to purchase practice management software?
There are some desktop software tools that you can use. I mean, they're not free. There's a couple of programs out there. I mean, one of them I mentioned was Work Tracker, which is WORKTRAKR by Proximity Communications, and I'm not sure I think it's less than $100, but it'll actually let you track what you're doing. Every telephone call that you make, every email that you send, it'll prompt you. And if your firm has a time and billing package, which I assume most firms, well, I shouldn't assume most firms do because they don't. The very, very, very worst case scenario is track it in Excel, and I hate to give you that advice, but if you have no tools at your fingertips, that at least will give you a place where you can create a worksheet for every week, create 5 tabs on the bottom, and track your day in a spreadsheet, so you at least have a way of searching for things when you're looking for them later.
All right, next question. For budget purposes, what is your software recommendation for a solo practitioner in terms of priority if you cannot afford an all-in-one package?
Well, I would look at a program like, just as an example, like LexisNexis PC Law, because it is an all-in-one package, and it's less than $1,000, and it does everything that we talked about. So that's one option. There are some free tools if you've got an iPhone or a Droid, if you want to tie that into some of these practice management softwares if you want. But I think that if you've got nothing and you're looking to have something, you want to look at the integrated time billing and accounting package, especially ones that have mobility features like PC Law does. So that's well worth your consideration, and you get a little bit of, you get some practice management tools with that too. But the other tabs 3 also, I want to say TOO. Tabs 3 also has some of those tools, and they've got the new Tabs 3 Connect item coming out. And then there's lots of software out there. It's worth the investment.
And the next question, what is the best way to transition from an outdated practice software to newer software? Is it best to scrap the old and find a new one?
It depends. The answer is, and I'm going to give you a lawyer's answer. It depends. And I think that the best thing to do would be to find someone who's an expert in the area of law practice management software. A lot of my colleagues and I will give you a free consultation and take a look at what you've got, show you the new tools that are out there, and help you make the right decision. Sometimes it is best if your old package has been used and abused, and you don't feel the data is reliable. I wouldn't necessarily convert that data because it's going to be a junk out, junk in scenario, and you may want to start fresh. But a good consultant can help you with that.
Are you aware of any software that helps us work with UTBMS litigation task codes to avoid appeals?
All of the packages that I mentioned to you, PC Law, Tabs, Juris, Orion, Rippey Kingston, they all do it. They all have UTBMS task codes, and in fact, you can set those software packages to force you to use a UTBMS task code when you make a time entry, so that you don't have those problems. So most, if not all, of the packages I suggested will do it will require that you use the litigation and activity codes and expense codes so that your bills aren't rejected and you won't have trouble at the time of appeal.
Can you recommend a few cloud-based document management software programs?
There's lots of stuff. Well, I shouldn't say there's lots of stuff. It really depends on volume. There are some packages out there that are considered document management in the cloud, Was that the question, Julia? Document or practice management?
Document management.
Document management. There's a program out there called NetDocuments, which is cloud-based document management. WorldDocs has cloud-based, both desktop and cloud-based offerings. There are Autonomy and not Docs Open. It's got a new name now. They also have document management, desktop cloud combination solutions, and then those are the programs that are actually will force you to profile your documents as opposed to simply just store things in the cloud. There's programs like Box and Dropbox and things like that that just allows for storage in the cloud, and then there's practice management in the cloud that has some document management capabilities like Rocket Matter, where you can drag documents onto a pallet and it uploads into the cloud for you. So it really depends upon what your specific needs are, but those are some of the programs that I would suggest that you take a look at.
And do you have any software recommendations for Mac users?
Well, Mac users, you sort of present a special challenge because while I appreciate the desire to work on the Mac environment, in fact, I too would like to work in the Mac environment, but unfortunately, today's software is still Windows-based. So if you're going to be on the Mac, you really need to consider the cloud. And if you're going to be on the cloud, you want to look at things like Firm Manager or Rocket Matter or Clio or AdvoLogix, and you're going to have to really put yourself up into the cloud. There are a few packages out there that I believe will help you capture time on a Mac, but I can't tell you how robust they would be as far as billing. Unfortunately, like I said, most of the packages that are built today are Windows-based, and of course you can create a virtual environment on the Mac to flip into a Windows-based program. So unfortunately, I don't know of, unless somebody else perhaps has some thoughts, I don't know of anything that's specifically time billing and accounting for lawyers on a Mac.
What is the best way to get older attorneys to break the habit of recording their time at the end of the day or week?
Beat them. No. It's a slow process, and it's really something that you want to have. Really, there's no special way to do it other than to sit everybody down and say, we want to make more money. And the way we're going to make more money is if we all get together and we say we're all going to bill the same way, we're going to bill contemporaneously with our workday. I have been to many firms where the bookkeepers and accountants of the firm will complain to me or confide in me that you see Sue over in the corner, she recreates her time on the 30th of the month. And Sue's response is, well, I'm too busy. And my retort to that is, so you're too busy to make money. And when you put it like that, you don't want to embarrass them, but you want to sort of give them the idea that by trying something new, there's an opportunity to we have responsibilities. I mean, throw the model rules at them. The model rules say you have to keep track of your time. You have to communicate effectively. They don't really say you have to keep track of your time, but you have to communicate effectively, and you have to charge a reasonable fee. And you're not going to deliver effective communications if you bill at the end of the month because you're going to miss stuff. And if you miss stuff, is that tantamount to malpractice? Probably not. Is it tantamount to being accused of not effectively following the bar rules? Maybe. So I think that there's, do I have great advice how to do it? No. But I think that those are some of the ways you can potentially get them to buy into this idea.
If a firm was to switch to more frequent billing, how would you let your clients know that they will be billed either on the 15th of the month or the last day of the month?
I would probably send them, if your engagement letter says you're going to bill on a certain day, then you obviously have to send an amendment to the engagement letter. But if most of the engagement letters will just say we're going to bill, on a periodic basis, or we'll bill every 30 days, and I think you just have to inform them on the next billing statement that they're not going to get a bill until, either they'll get another bill for 15 days, or they may not get a bill for 45 days, but we're going to switch them to a new billing cycle. Just like a credit card company would tell you that they're going to switch you from your closing date, the 8th of the month, to the 28th of the month.
Do you have a recommendation for a calendar task-oriented program for 10 attorneys or more?
A calendar task-oriented program,
Yes.
you know, for 10 attorneys or more. You know, practice management, and I say that with, you know, there's a lot of great practice management softwares out there, and I would probably Google practice management for small to medium-sized law firms. And programs that would flow off my tongue would be things like Practice Master, Amicus Attorney, Time Matters. Those would be the three that would flow off my tongue right off the bat. But you know, proper investigation as to what the strengths and weaknesses of those programs are and what best fits your firm is something that you can employ a consultant to help you with.
And that does conclude today's webinar, and I would like to thank our speaker for his expert advice on today's topic and to all of our attendees for taking time out of your busy day to join us.